All right. And we are live this week. We are talking about mindset in all sorts of fashion when it comes to approaching new goals or approaching a heavy lift that day or approaching just your lift in general that day if you're exhausted. The mindset about changing your diet around. It all plays a role. We're the command center first and foremost, the way our thoughts process. Um, and other than that, any announcements you have, Eric? Anything you want to talk about?
Yes, I'm sure you've heard of. Well, I sent you the egg study review. So it's published. I won't get crazy into detail, but published by JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association, and it took basically six cohort studies, and it looked at you know eggs as a whole and high cholesterol and what it does, and they basically came to a conclusion that says you know eggs are bad for you, and they will actually decrease longevity. So one of my clients actually kind of freaked out and was like, oh, I saw this and that. And I was panicking. And I told him, well, let me look into it. So I kind of did some digging and background research and found that, it was a select study. It just kind of cherry picked. I know we like to use that word on this podcast. It cherry picked a couple different studies that came to the conclusion that cholesterol is bad. But then if you look at other studies out there that I found one that did a meta study, which is took all the studies on PubMed, my favorite, and it showed that there was barely no correlation between, you know, egg intake and, you know, cardiovascular disease in a healthy lifestyle. It said obviously it didn't take into account people with poor um, eating
Right.
habits and lifestyles. In the original start, well, the original editorial posted by JAMA was going off of a couple of studies that just gave people questionnaires back in like the 1980s and asked what they were eating and didn't take in consideration, lifestyle, health, diet change, and all that. So for people listening, I don't think eggs are a bad thing. I don't think you're gonna develop cardiovascular disease. The big takeaway here though is you do have to watch your cholesterol intake. We're not eating crappy foods, processed foods, or deep fried foods with high amounts of cholesterol. Be cautious and be careful, and also live a healthy lifestyle. Get the recommended amount of exercise daily. We're talking 60 minutes plus. Eat vegetables, eat all this stuff that's going to help create longevity.
Yeah, and I think should be said that a lot of these studies can strike fear in people when in reality, when you dig further, they're basically just zooming in on one little sliver of information of a piece that is one piece, excuse me, of a part that is one piece of the puzzle of the whole big picture. So it's important not to get distracted by buzzwords or big headlines like that try to sway you in one drastic way or the other. But one thing that does go along with that is the mTOR process that is um, involved in protein synthesis, involved in breaking down proteins and amino acids, and is usually activated by eating animal proteins. So, yes, in the odd case of the individual who ate nothing except for eggs every single day, sure, they would not be benefiting their life in terms of longevity because that mTOR process is being activated too readily in their system. But it's just like anything else. You just got to find the right balance point with it. And you'd want just ideally, you'd want more days off than on. Just like alcohol, because it stimulates so many negative processes in the body and is a toxin, you want more days off than on of alcohol. You want more days off than on of your mTOR process in your body. But that is an interesting study that you sent me, the whole egg study. I do want to like even dig further into that. Maybe we'll even have a whole episode we'll talk about that study or just studies in general. But it kind of goes right along with what I was going to bring up, which was this NRF2 pathway. Um, so this is it's called your NRF2, and it's predominantly responsible and its sole purpose is your antioxidant system. They are able to pinpoint these different systems, mTOR, NRF2, yada yada, and determine their exact role in the body. So this NRF2 pathway, it's fighting off antioxidants in your body, in your cells, is kind of like, you have a normal healthy cell, and it's given all these outside toxins or stimulus or free radicals, and the NRF2 pathway would be responsible for cleaning up that cell and strengthening that cell to make it a normal cell again. So the way this is important is it's activated through things like autophagy, which is activated through fasting or using the sauna, or even things like sprinting. I just thought it was really interesting because as people get further and further into this industry, and as we get further and further as a culture, we get more specific. And I think it's important for people to understand these pathways now before it's presented to them in such a way that doesn't make any sense. And people try to make it super fancy and sell them products like, oh, buy this. This will turn on your NRF2 pathway. It's like, well, you could do that, or if you just knew that pathway comes innately into you, you can do a lot of other natural occurring modalities to get that pathway boosted.
Did it say anything about exercise in that pathway? I mean, there's there's got to be.
Yeah. So prolonged fasting, physical exercise just in general, caloric restriction. You want to make sure you get a lot of sunlight and vitamin D to activate the NRF2. And then eating in the ketogenic manner will actually activate your NRF2. Yeah. But I think we'll be hearing more and more about both of these, mTOR and NRF2, because it's probably more on the brink of science when it comes to research and development and people in a lab setting that are looking at this stuff. Which still, I think there is an important caveat to remember, and a certain asterisk next to any piece of information that comes out of a lab, is that when you go looking for something, you'll eventually find it. And these studies, while they don't necessarily always cherry pick, like we mentioned before, they can sometimes be skewed based upon the population base, and there can be confounding factors that people don't always take into consideration. And one of the things taken into consideration is just what's the word, like experimental bias, when you have just everything in the system is so well controlled and all the variables are so well controlled that you end up sort of getting results anyway. So they're just little things to remember. Let's dive into some mindset stuff, and I think we should start with outside the gym. Let's progress. Let's go from 0 to 60, and let's go from the person who is not even really come around to getting to the gym. And maybe you can transport yourself to a point in time where you weren't exactly happy with your performance or weren't exactly happy with the way you looked, but nothing had really clicked yet for you to make exact changes to the physical activity you were doing. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Eric, but if you have anything in mind, feel free to share. Otherwise, I can come up with something.
I mean, I think everyone has had that kind of moment in their life, or at some point has had I need to be doing more. I should be doing more. What can I do more?
I want to hear yours. I want to hear when yours was.
And that's what I'm saying. Everyone's going to have them, and it doesn't matter if it's now, or you're going to find it tomorrow, or you had it years ago. Mine definitely started in high school. I was never the biggest kid, not really strong, not really fast, just kind of your average Joe. And I mean, I think I ended up watching. I was watching like a football game or some football show. Might have been Hard Knocks, and kind of saw the dedication and the effort that people put into it, and I was like, okay. If I want to be that, I'm gonna have to do stuff. So, I mean, I can even remember. I think I was 14 years old. I asked for weights for Christmas, and here I am. I'm thinking I'm gonna get this nice Bowflex machine or whatever, and my mom literally got
A
me,
paperweight?
you know,
No.
a pair of two or a pair of 15-pound dumbbells. I'm like, ah, dang,
Heck
what am I gonna do
yeah.
with this? And I really hadn't really driven into, my high school gym. I mean, I was a freshman in high school, so I was kind of, shy, taken back. But I remember at night, she'd be like, all right, go to bed. It's your bedtime, back when I had a bedtime. And I would like shut everything off, and then 10 minutes later I'd get up and I'd start doing push-ups, squats, curls, triceps, basically anything I could in my room, and I'd do it for about 30-40 minutes. And at first it's great, and then you just adding reps and reps and reps. That's what started it. And then I found one of my buddies, and I'll always thank him for this, who's like, oh, you want to join the football team? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So he brought me to the weight room the first day. And I think I told you this. I mean, I was benching literally the bar and maybe some 10-pound plates, and I was just hitting fatigue. And I was like, this is miserable. I was just embarrassed. I wasn't strong. I just had no real, you know, ability to lift anything. And there's seniors in there just, 225 repping out, squatting, 225 plus. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
Most people would have turned around and walked away. And then my friend, it was like a running day. He was like, just keep going. Coach is going to be there. Just act like you're not tired and you're going to push that limit. And that kind of always stuck with me. And since I was never the most athletic or the most talented, I always felt like I was, working from a deficit and I had to play catch up. And that's where, I think that's where my hard work kind of stemmed from is, there's people better out there than me. There always will be, and they're always
Yeah.
going to be. But how can I try to close that gap and be better? And I think it just
Yeah.
stuck with me. I mean, I would stay in the weight room, till it closed at 5:30 at night. I would just try to be the last one in there, to show the hard work and dedication and prove it off. I mean, I've over the years kind of learned that, I have to do higher volume for myself to be able to increase muscle mass and see a demand on my body. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's where it was. And there was
It's
days
so
where I wouldn't want to go. And, I just said, you got to do this for, not for me, but, for the team. People are watching, coaches watching. He's gonna call you out. And I remember my coach would come down and be like, hey, you lifting today? And some people would be like, no. And he'd be like, why not? I didn't want to be the person to say no, because there's no excuse not to. So I think it's just ever since
did,
then, we lifted
did you
today.
have any tricks or any ways that you forced yourself into that mindset or ways that you maybe remembered to push yourself or anything like that? Did you do anything specific? Like, because all this stuff that you're saying, like some of it is actually pretty similar. I can level with you on some stuff. Like always kind of feeling like my back's against the wall and I'm like the low man on the totem pole and having to prove myself. But I would like have inspirational quotes or like that one picture of Muhammad Ali standing over was it Sonny Liston or something? He's standing over somebody they just knocked down and it had like some inspirational quote or something. But I would have like stuff like that around my um, room to help remind me and help keep my mindset focused on strength and everything
Yeah.
like that because I didn't have it. So I had to like sort of fake it till I made it. And I remember literally one of them, I don't remember what it said, but I remember it was a badass picture of an athlete with a quote and I put it on my fucking ceiling. So it was the first thing I saw when I woke up. And yeah, I don't know. Did you have any tricks like that or any
I had
poster
I had
quotes?
I had one quote that I'd found in, I can't remember the who actually said it or wrote it, I actually have this. I actually wrote this in my yearbook for high school. But the quote was, "Some people dream of success, while other people get up every day and make it happen." Or
Fuck.
it could be every peop or every day people get up and work hard at it. And that always stuck with me because everyone's dreaming of success in life, but who's actually going to get up, put the work in, and do it every single day? Because I knew at that point that I wasn't at all going to be successful at what I was doing, which is playing sports. Then I had to do it every day and wake up, and that's kind of what instilled with me. And another kind of, I wouldn't say a trick, but just how kind of my brain operates is I always kind of would have negative talk to myself. And I know a lot of times people say, "Oh, negative talk's bad," but I actually think sometimes it's good. So I'd sit there and if I wasn't working out, or I didn't go to the gym that day and went home, I'd be like, well, there's other people getting better than me. Why aren't you doing that? You're weak. You kind of won't amount to anything. Things you see in movies and probably you've been told or people tell people is like that will never happen. Basically to myself, and then be like, okay, do I really want to feel like that 24/7? And I was like, no. But that's me. I know everyone that can be kind of dark and dismal. But even to this day, I mean, when I go lift, I kind of have that mentality of, you're not good enough. Let's prove someone wrong, or people wrong, or yourself wrong. And
No,
that's
I think that's really important. I think even as we hit our goals and stuff like that, it's important to be proud but not satisfied. It's important
yeah,
to stay hungry, give yourself the pat on the back, but don't lose sight of if you let your foot off the gas, you're just going to fall back down that hill. And I see where you're at with the whole thing about getting and going because yeah, like I had really bad social anxiety, really bad negative self talk, and a little bit of depression and stuff like that, and it was kind of like a struggle every day type thing to where it was like no go like just go work out, you'll feel better, like go run around, like you'll feel better. And I remember just being like not necessarily talking shit about to myself, but just being like, well, if you don't, you're just gonna be negative all the time and like talk bad about yourself. And like I saw the writing on the wall, and I could either go down that path of constantly avoiding, or keep doing this thing that made me feel good. And I remember being driven to the gym because I read some article about like exercise releasing dopamine and making you feel better, and that being like your feel good drug. And I literally use it as like therapy. But it was one of those things where like I had to fake it till I made it, especially with that mindset. And for me, having quotes in that beginning phase was really helpful to put that that hat on that was the like athletic hat that I didn't have those tools or those characteristics at the time, but I put that hat on, and when I put that figurative hat on, I was athletic and I was disciplined and I was pushing myself, and kind of like what you said, like I never felt like I was the strongest. I definitely wasn't the biggest by any means. I was 5'8", and I was one of the first kids from my school to make it to the state tournament soccer game, and I was the only kid who was not 6 feet, so I'm the shortest kid there, and feeling like my back's against the wall and I got shit to prove, and I always felt that way in the gym. And my claim to fame is just like I can move more weight faster, right? Like so, I just like started pushing myself, and I would lift a heavy weight and like go do another exercise with heavy weight, just like keep going around like that. And little did I know I was actually doing like circuit training and anaerobic capacity and all that stuff. But um, yeah, like for me, I think quotes were definitely a big help, and finding like the idols that I wanted to learn from were big help to getting me to going initially, and keeping that motivation from falling. And it but it wasn't until later, until like I really established my why, which I think is an important thing to mention to people. Like you can have a mindset and you can change the way you view looking at the gym. You can change the way you view yourself. You can change the way you view your workouts so that you get them done, and strengthening your mindset. But at the same time, if you don't have a why, you're not going to stick to it, and it's not going to be innate, and it's not going to be a reflex. It's going to be hard work every single day because you won't have like a real purpose to doing it. And I think that's another um, roadblock that I know I hit later on in my training. But that's I think that's really good for mindset in the beginning. Um, Maybe I think another thing to mention is just um, when it comes down to some of these roadblocks that you hit, it's about having that mindset of perseverance and that mindset of discipline and doing things even with whether you fail or not. And one of the biggest quotes that stood out to me was, success is not final and failure is not fatal. So, just because you fail at something, just because you miss a weight or whatever, you don't go to the gym that day or you ate shitty that day, that's not final. It's not over like that. And just because the one day you eat super healthy, you hit all your numbers in your weight room, that doesn't mean you made it. Success is not final. And along with that, my mom would always remind me, she's like, Albert Einstein failed out of calculus in college, and he's one of the smartest men known to our humankind. Michael Jordan didn't even make his high school basketball team, and he's considered the greatest of all time in basketball. Um, J.D. Salinger, the guy who wrote Catcher in the Rye, he failed out of college because he failed English, and look what he did. So, like, I remember her telling me these things and just being like, "Wow, really? Like, I would have never thought these really successful people had all these failures or had all these struggles." And I think, at least for me, and I don't know if that is an issue for a lot of people, but I feel like, especially with social media, people compare their internal self to these outside masks of people, and they lose sight of the path and the struggle that they had to endure to get there. So I don't know. I like to remind people that it never gets any easier. You only get better at it, and little things like that, so that people don't think there is like an end goal to it all. And I think that's one thing that people need to change their mindset is they're like, oh, I just got to go to the gym this week so I look good for the beach this weekend, or I just got to whatever. Like I don't know what else do people like prepare short term for besides like beach vacations. Maybe they're like, I'm moving soon, so I got to get back into shape. I'm gonna have to be moving a lot of stuff. Like it's just not like that. And I think you're better off if you can fix your mindset to make it about your lifestyle and just something you do every day, just like brushing your teeth, washing your face, taking care of your kids, eating food, drinking water, moving, exercising every day. Like it's got to be viewed that way, or else you're going to fall off.
Yeah, and I think you definitely nailed the. I mean, I love the failure. I'll kind of circle back to that, but the short term. I think everyone more thinks now, and like you said, the short term. Like, what is going to happen quickly, soon? What can I kind of get instantly? And I think people are missing, which is good. It's good to have short term. I'm all for it. We got to understand it's not going to come that easy or that quickly. I sometimes feel like, oh, it's like right now it's April. It's starting, and people are like, all right, I got to get ready for the summer. And I've already had clients ask me, do you guys see an flux of people come in because the weather
Yeah,
starts to get nice? And you kind of do. And you also have to tell those people, like, yeah, you can absolutely do it if you put your mind where you want it to be. You can absolutely get that done. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be sacrifice, but that's a quick amount of time for a big turnaround, or maybe the goal you think that you're going to reach in your head. you know, why not start now and prepare? Yeah, you get there and then stay there for next year, or stay there for, the holidays or whatever it is. I think people get these innate goals. It's like, all right, I did 12 weeks. I'm done. I'm good. I lost this amount of weight. I dropped this percent body fat. I'm good. I can stop. I'm good. Doesn't happen. Um,
yeah,
which, that's where, there's one point in my life after high school, if I wasn't going to go play at the next level, I decided I was going to stop lifting and working out completely. I was like, I'm done. Now,
yeah,
I had thought of it. I never actually did it, but that was my plan. I was like, I'm gonna be done. I don't need this anymore. And then, stuff changed. You get different opportunities. You realize that, this is kind of different. You go back to being what you were before, and you're like, you're not like that. But then kind of
Right.
circling back around, I think, failure, what you said there is great. And I think people need to fail every day. I think people need to be afraid of failure. And I think fear of failure is really good because it drives people to be better.
To try to win. Yeah.
And, think about it. You basically have to challenge yourself and in your brain every day to be better. And if we kind of create this sense of no failure, or we never want anyone to fail, we kind of get stuck in this habit or constant comfort zone that we just live in. And then when something big comes up that we're like, oh, we're gonna fail, we kind of almost freeze up and panic and say, oh, there's no way I can do it, there's no point, I can find a different solution for that. But I definitely think,
Well, that's a key distinction to make, though. Is like you want to fear failure, but it's not fatal, like that quote said, because
right.
you can fear failure all you want, and you should, because you should be focused more on succeeding and winning and doing the things that will get you on that road. But when I think what happens is people start to fear failure so much that they focus too much on not failing than they do on winning. So if you think of like the tightrope analogy, and instead of people viewing their success and just staring at that one little spot that they have to walk along that tightrope, they look left and right and they say, I can't fall, I can't fall, I can't fall. And what happens? Inevitably, they fall. And I think what happens too is, aside from that analogy, because obviously we fell off a tightrope, you're going to like die possibly, but people fail and then it's world ending. I mean, I always think of this scenario. Vince Young, he was one of the greatest quarterbacks to come into the NFL, who then didn't handle his first loss well, didn't handle being booed well, and he went into a deep depression, and he was never able to perform at his highest ability, his physical ability that he had previously achieved. And it came down to probably how poor he had been coached and how poor his mindset was at failing for the first time, because you have to focus on winning, and that should be the goal, because you should be focused on winning the most amount of games in a, the total net sum should be a positive gain. But you have to recognize that losing is going to happen and failures are going to happen. And if you just ignore them, you're never going to get any better. That's the only time that a failure is a true failure, is if you don't learn from it.
and
You have to be willing to fail and accept that it's just a part of the process.
And with that failure, if and when you do fail, the brain learns, and then the next time you do it, it's going to learn, and it becomes a different behavior. Now you're going to start, maybe you fail a second time or a third time, but then that's whatever, this movement pattern, this whatever you're doing becomes favorable, and then you start not failing, and then you start
Right.
getting more of an effect of behavior change, and it just becomes basically automatic. And then you go on to the next set of failures, and it doesn't have to be something life and death and crazy.
No, but I think you're talking about basically like, if I'm on my bicycle and I took my training wheels off and I sway to the left and then all of a sudden I hit the ground, my brain's going to be more aware of when I start to sway to the left, it's going to want to start to stabilize me right before I fall and hit the ground, because it wants to. It learned that that is not a
Right.
positive
Or even look
stimulus.
about, it could be, you failed a test. Say you failed a test, or your brain's going to learn, okay, I failed that test. And then next time you have to say, okay, what do I got to focus on a little bit different? But then your brain will learn, okay, if you get the test back, you know what you got wrong. And you go back and study that. And then next time you take that test, you get it right. The fear is not going to be there because you've just studied. Now, obviously, sometimes you can't retake tests, and that's fine, but most of the time you can. And you kind of, like everyone says, you learn from your mistakes. I mean, the brain is so resilient at learning that it's it'll pick things up. So, just like say you eat a hot pepper, right? What happens? Your body goes. Some people's bodies start sweating. it can produce a bad GI reaction. The next time you see that pepper, your brain's going to say, hey, that happened last time. I have a memory. This is what's going to happen next time. Be smart about this. And it learns. So I think people each day need to
Yeah.
have small challenges or small fears or small failures that even if they don't get it the first time, try again. So even like reading a book, or say you read a chapter of a book and then you say, hey, I really don't understand that. It's not really a fear of your life, but you kind of failed at retaining that information. You failed at, you know, I picking up information that you want to learn or need to learn. I just think that people need to challenge themselves more daily. Um,
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree.
and kind of bringing it back to the workout side of it. You know, I prescribe for myself and for a lot of my clients stuff that I know people are going to fail at, and I want them to fail. And I tell them that, and they kind of look at me a little strange. And I'm saying, no, I'm giving you this weight, this rep, because I want you to fail, and I want your brain to learn what it feels like to fail, and then push past that. So when you do hit that lift or hit that time, your brain now has a new memory. It gets past that fear of failure, and then I've just created a whole new pattern in your brain to say, okay, when I see 3 plates on this, I am fine. And then you put another plate on, and you keep telling the brain, hey, I'm going to keep challenging it and keep going you to failure. But
Yeah, and you're getting right to where we want to be, because we talked about kind of the mindset for the person who hasn't started and getting going, getting momentum. We talked about the mindset and the little viewpoints that you need to have and perspectives you need to have when you are continuing training, or you're just starting to hit your initial speed bumps or walls. And then, yeah, like I like how you're getting into this next part, which is sort of training your mindset and creating a mental immunity. I believe is what it's best referred to as.
yes,
And probably the major scenario that comes to mind um, for me, well, actually two. I have two major scenarios that come to mind when I think of like my clients. One of them is pushing themselves on days that they don't feel they have it. And this is a really interesting one, because maybe they didn't sleep well, or they didn't eat right, or something doesn't sit well with them in their digestive system. Um, and I was like, yeah, I just don't know what it is. I just don't feel like I have it today. Like, we'll see what happens. And sure enough, it's like it could be like one of the best lifts we had. I mean, I had a guy who came back from a work trip, and he's like, dude, I'm exhausted. Plus, we were out drinking the night before. Like, I didn't eat any breakfast this morning, and I had like the airplane lunch, and I'm beat. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. And we ended up hitting like a PR in one of our lifts. And I was like, dude, like, you just can't judge it based upon those feelings like that. You just kind of have to push through and let your actions kind of speak for themselves. But one piece that really helped us um, train him through his behavior, which not everyone's going to have access to this technology, but the Whoop, man, that thing is incredible. But measuring heart rate variability and looking at it and saying, like, you know what? You're fine. Like, let's go. We're going to load things up. We're going to load up the weight. And then there are other times where it says, like, no, your recovery is really piss poor. You have really high heart rate variability, so we shouldn't really push it today. And on those days, they'll even feel like, no, I feel great. I feel like I can push myself. So I think that's a really interesting one. Interesting way to train yourself is measuring your heart rate variability, and you can do this with the H7 Polar heart rate monitor. And the main thing is, after a major and a heavy training session, you're going to have high heart rate variability because your body's recovering and repairing and working hard. And if your body's already done all that recovery period and prepared itself, you're going to have a low heart rate variability, and you're going to be ready for another vigorous training session again. So I think it's a really important tool, because a lot of people just judge it based upon how they feel that day. And how you feel that day can be your mind playing tricks on you, because we talked about how to strengthen and create that discipline and understand how that failure is needed. but there's still going to be day. It's always a never ending battle, and there are going to be days where your weaker mind is going to trump your strong mind, and there's going to be other days where your strong mind inappropriately tells your other mind that no, you should do this. So I think it's just another good tool to give you feedback, to understand when it's time to create that mental immunity and just push through and persevere, and when it's time to back off and listen to your body and listen to the feedback that your you know chemistry and biology is signaling to you.
Yeah, and you often hear that a lot when people are like, oh, I'll ask them, are you gonna work out today, or maybe it's not clients, it's other people, and they're like, oh, I'm feeling tired today, or big one I get is, oh, I'm fasting, and I've been on keto, and
Oh my gosh,
I
yeah.
I'm not really like the energy's not there, and I'm like, I I get it. It's theoretically it's not, but it is, and I'm like, you just got to go do it because it's not one of these things where it's like, oh, you're going to be zapped, you're going to have a bad workout. I think that's more of a mental thing that people kind of tell themselves to say, okay, oh, maybe we can take it easy today because I'm doing this and I don't feel that great, or low energies. But that's just your mind. You're just controlling it. I mean, because you have tons of energy and stored in the body from previous days. And I know we talked about this on last podcast on our experience with fasting and stuff. And we still had these great workouts, these great lifts, even though your body supposedly is supposed to be in a state of reduced caloric intake, which it is, but the energy is still there. It's still going to perform. That's the one where it's you just got to go do it, see how it feels the first time, but you got to clear up that mental mindset of oh, I'm going to be tired, this is going to be bad. You just got to go, hey, I'm going to give this my best shot. I'm going to give it all. I'm going to try to hit really good numbers for this day, or your mileage for today, sprint speed for today, whatever it is, and then gauge from there. Because just like you said, if you do that and you have a good workout, you now say, oh, next time I fast, I'm fine. I can do that right again. I'm gonna have a good workout.
Right. Exactly.
And it's all about building that mindset of to, okay, if even if something happens, I'm still able to do something and push through that and know that my body will be fine.
And that's so this is another important piece, and I'm glad we're talking about mindset today because we haven't done this in a while. But another important piece is if you believe it, it will be it. And when I have clients come to me and they're like, dude, I did this, I did that, I did this. I don't think I'm going to be able to perform well today, or I think I'm going to be able to perform awesome today. My only response is, well, we'll see. Because I'm not trying to sway them one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to influence their beliefs because the placebo effect is a real fucking thing.
Totally.
Like you have control groups and you have every experimental study they do a group where they have a placebo, a sugar pill, and they don't tell them and they think it's like the same experimental group, and these people have the same effects as the people who are taking the actual drug. It's because their belief systems dictate their behavior and dictates the way their bodies do things. So I totally think that, or I totally believe that that plays a huge influence in this whole process. So if you believe that, yeah, your gym is shitty and you'll never get a good workout because your gym sucks and you hate all the people there, guess what? You're never going to get a good workout there and your gym sucks. But if you view it as like, yeah, my gym's great, like there's a lot of people that work hard, there's a lot of people that are focused, and I just try to push myself and get a good workout every day. Guess what? You're going to have a great workout and you're going to love your gym. So it's like your perception is your reality. And I think it's really important for people to understand that um, that their mindset alone can dictate how their workout's going to go, and they need to be at the forefront and be more of observers rather than um, decision makers and
Mm.
trying to steer the ship. You really just need to be do all the best things you can, and then just kind of be the fly on the wall to observe how you're performing. Um,
Well, that's why it's crucial to be careful of if you, especially if you're a coach or a trainer or anyone else, what you say to people and how you say it. So say like if you came to me and were like, oh, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Is this going to affect my deadlift? And I was like, well, lack of sleep.
if you
You
let
could be a
it,
little tired. Your energy levels can be low. You might not have that CNS firing. you're just like your belief system. You're going to start being like, yeah, he's right. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going to happen. And if no, I was
Right.
like, you know what? Go up, try the best you can, try to hit your numbers, see what happens, and come talk to me afterwards. And then afterwards, if you're like, yeah, I didn't hit it, I'd be like, that can be because, slack of sleep, but I'm not going to put that thought already in your head to just give you
Exactly.
this like almost a second, be like, yeah, I'm going to be tired. So this isn't going to be good. And sometimes from there, people will get in a couple, 3 sets and they'll be like, well, I'm just going to stop. Or
Yeah.
I asked like people like how'd that look? How was that? And I'm like, well, what'd you feel? How are you feeling? I'm not going to answer questions for you because you're just going to feed off of what you think I want to hear. And your belief
Exactly.
system is like, oh yeah, I feel good. It's like, no, you come talk to me afterwards.
Yeah. 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 Because, the main thing is mind over matter is a cute little phrase. It's not always applicable because guess what? What matters does matter. You can't just say like, "Oh, if I think about flying, I'll just fly." Yeah, no, you're gonna fall off that building. You're gonna die. But I can speak from experience. I tried to fly when I was a kid. It's a really bad story,
I
but
think we all
apparently I
have.
did. Yeah, right. So, but my point is that matter does matter. But I would rather the not lose the potential of hitting something or performing something because I overshot with my mindset than undershot. So my point is don't go into it saying, "Oh, I'll never be able to lift 225 today because I'm tired." Go into it thinking, you know, I'm gonna try my best at hitting 225. Or I'm gonna hit 225, and maybe I'll try to even hit 235. And I would rather not hit 225 in that scenario than not hit 225 going into the day, saying to myself, I'm not gonna hit 225. So don't limit your potential based upon your mindset because you don't know what your ceiling is. You don't know what your potential is and what you possess until you do it and maybe even surprise yourself. Um,
And it's always changing.
exactly. It should always be ever changing. And that's what we always do. We just make adjustments as we get older and make adjustments as we train more and we just get our hours of experience in and get better and better,
And it's
better each day.
it's a daily thing too. I mean, I'm sure you have the daily struggles of, do I want to do this or do that? And, maybe not. I think to the point where some people, once you get in a groove, it's okay to do the same thing over and over again, and then kind of push the comfort zone a little bit. I'll tell you where I get almost not like not like a constant mental battle. If I know, in this phase I'm doing, 15 seconds sprints on the fan bike, or I got to do something just brutal on the fan bike, and I know what it's going to feel because my previous like memory of this is like, this is going to be miserable. I will literally get on there and try to talk myself out of it. Like in my head, I'll be like, oh, I can just do this and it'll be over quicker and that. And then I just got to shut that down and say, just do it. You have to do it. It's prescribed. It's written down. Um, there's no kind of skating around it. And I think that's hard for people because people want to have this back and forth in their head. Well, since I did this yesterday or I did this today, I did it last week, I could do it now. Well, I always say if it's written down and someone gave it to you, it's in a program, it's in a phase, just do it because it's in that for a reason. Just trust whoever
Yeah.
wrote that, trust that process. And you do get better. Next time you get on or the third time, you're going to have that feeling, but you're like, no, I'm just going to push through that. And I think that's
It's
where
so true.
where I'm
In
at
the
right now.
moment, in the moment is a really good one that you just brought up, especially like performing at that high level. Um, it's really important to like stay the course, and I do the same thing. Even when I write something, and I'll be like, all right, I'm going to go do 20 stair mill sprints of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And then at the eighth one, I'm like, you know what? I'll just do 10 today, and tomorrow I'll do 15, and the next week I'll do 20. And then I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Just stay the course. Let's
Yeah.
do this. We're here. But I do have that moment of battle, internal battle, and to this day, in everything I do, there's still that little internal voice of like, well, we could do this. Like, no, let's stay the course. Let's have the discipline. Let's just do it this way. It'll be better for us in the long run.
And I think
So
that's
I'm glad
good.
you brought it up. And there's another little tool that they use that we actually talked about earlier this season with Todd Sylvester, and Olympic athletes do this. Like for example, um, would be like Tony Hawk's 900. He would basically write out a list of his fears and then write out next to it his like powered list. So if he wrote out like his list would have been like I can't perform a 900, right? That's like his negative self-talk. In the column next to that, it'll say like I Tony Hawk can perform a 900. And they read that list to them, right? So he might be like I he don't like drop-ins, and like I Tony Hawk like drop-ins. So he has this list of like all his power statements, and he reads that to himself like every morning to adjust his mindset in those moments. And it's like something that Olympic athletes and professional athletes do to fix their mindset for the fear of performance in the moment, in those like game-winning shots, or in those at the X Games about to perform on the 900 for the first time ever in front of millions of people. So there are tools that amplify the way your mind works for you when it gets it down to performance. But I kind of wanted to wrap things up, unless you had some more to talk about. I
Oh,
think this is a really
oh,
good.
man, I could talk about mindset and for hours.
I know,
Good,
I
good
know,
point
but
to
this
stop
is
right
a
there.
really good, clean, concise, organized
Yeah.
podcast for people from start to finish to see how they need to adjust their mindset on their journey. And everyone's going to be different.
Hmm.
So there could be some people who very beginning was the only applicable part, and there's some people who the very end is the only applicable part. But I think it's important for people to find out where they are on this journey and to continue to harden and strengthen and build that mental immunity, because it never stops. It's not like one day you tell yourself, I'm going to go to the gym every day because I have the discipline, and then now you never have to think about it again. No, it's just like how like we're talking. Like there's still times where we get on the fan bike, we get on the stair mill, we get in front of that sled, and we're like, I don't want to fucking do this, but then we do it
It's
anyway.
a cycle. It repeats. And when you get
It
to
is.
where we are, the next point is I get a new program. Say you write a program for me. I'm going to go, all right, I'm going to plan to start at the beginning again because I'm going, this is completely new to me. I got to figure out a whole new set of exercises or prescription that I got to deal with. And then you start that process again. And then by week 5, 6, 7, however long it is, then I'm starting to come back to the end again. And it's cyclical. So it's a never ending pattern. And that's how you create these locked in behavior mindsets that, you see these really successful people and these people in the world, that are succeeding at whatever they do because they figured out these loops, and it's always just going to repeat and reset. It's ever going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been a great episode. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to it. As always, we will end with a quote. I'll let Eric kind of think of one so he's not on the spot. But feel free to write us an email, thinkfitnesslife, all one word, at gmail.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and check out more information in our show notes. And feel free to leave a comment if you are so moved to. And that will be this week once we get down these quotes. I got a freaking badass one that I'm so ready
Fire
for.
away.
Do you
Yeah,
have one?
it might be yours. I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? Um, Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong.
Ooh, who said that one?
Mic drop. I don't even know. It's a good question. Let me Google that real quick.
All right. Well, I'm gonna steal one from you that you said in back in season 1. I believe you said this. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Sir Winston Churchill.
I may have quoted that, but it's quoted from somebody else. What is? Yeah, what is
Winston
that
Churchill.
from?
But I know you said it, and I was
Okay.
like, "Oh, dude, that is great." And kind of going along today, what we're talking about is the failure to failure is just knowing that you're going to have to fail in life, and it just doesn't come easy. And I kind of like that one for today.
Yeah. No, fuck yeah. Both of them reign true. So mine was quoted by Harold Craxton. He was a one-time professor at the Royal Academy of Music. Um, still fucking badass quotes. Both are really good quotes. All right, well that's it. Stay tuned until next week. Peace.